and welcome back, Rio Grande Guardian viewers. Great to see you all again. And our special guest today is Luisa Saenz. Luisa, good to see you.
Yes, Steve, it's a pleasure to see you again.
I remember Luisa best from her time at the Children's Defence Fund. However, as today's podcast will show, there's a lot more to Luisa than the time she spent at CDF, RGV.
Yes, my RGV, my beloved RGV.
Your beloved RGV. I want to start, though, Luisa, with your current work, because although you're retired, you do a lot of volunteer work, and some of that is with helping the students at Valley View ISD. Yes. And you're telling me that something very special is happening there with the students. So would you tell us about that?
Well, let me go back a little bit of history. This project started 18 years ago. A group of students in Mr. David de Leon's Spanish Literature and Culture class were AP students, College Board AP Advanced Placement students. And they scored the highest in the nation from the first year and consecutively until now. So that potential pointed to the opportunity for them to enroll in dual enrollment courses at the college level, but beyond the normal 60 hours for associate's degrees. David went to a conference one summer and heard about the possibility of putting students into a college campus, even while they were still in high school. So we came together, the UTRGV, what is now UTRGV, David and I, and we strategized on how to actually make that a reality. So we started with 28 students. They were bussed to the campus from Valley View High School to Pan Am, and they took the courses there. They not only took the courses in the classroom at the college level, but they passed with a 3.75 GPA, which was amazing. So out of those, over the years, we had 252 students to participate in that, and they all earned a minor in medical Spanish before they graduated high school. So they were ready to go for the next 3 years, okay? So that was just the best experience ever. It was nationally recognized by College Board, just very well proven as a project. Sadly, it stopped in 2021. But now, and this is the exciting part, we're back in business. And so now the courses are coming to the high school campus and the early college campus. Professors from the university are coming in to do the classes.
Tell us, why is it so special? Why are the students there performing so well? What do you put it down to?
I think it's giving them the chance to excel, to give the best of themselves, to interact. And while David is doing the classes, they're not even realizing that they're already being tested, because the experience is so interpersonal, a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth. He even went to the extent to ask for a term paper, but it wasn't really in the form of a narrative. They could paint, they could draw, they could write a poem, they could write an essay, whatever they wanted, but it had to be on a theme from the 38 books that they were reading throughout the semesters. So from there, we discovered artists and writers and poets. So that said, okay, if they have that potential, they can get even higher, go even higher. And so that's what's been the case, is that it's not a rote kind of thing.
I remember a couple of years ago, you invited me to an event there where the students were graduating out of UT San Antonio.
Yes.
Okay. And I had to write a report for one of our funders. And I put in there that was the most moving event I'd covered all year, because to see the students and the parents just absolutely thrilled with the achievement of their children.
Yes.
It was a very moving ceremony, graduation.
And you mentioned key point, parents. I have never, not even with Children's Defense Fund, not even with Avanza before that, have I ever seen parents respond the way they did to this, and the community. That's been the greatest joy. That the involvement was not just regular meetings here and there. It was actual, the books at home was part of the classroom. So the parents knew what the homework was. So they made sure the students did the homework. And then when we got into the digital era, they would still have the assignments to the parents, so that even if they had to work on the computers, they would still have to do it.
I want to move on shortly to interview you and talk to you about your biography, which is very compelling, I feel. But before we do that, have you got any events coming up involving Valley View and the students?
We have, and that is part of the requirement with UTSA, is that the students need to go to the campus for a week or 2 weeks of the summer and actually take the course. And the whole thing about that is for them to get to experience college life on campus. So they stay in the dorm, they eat in the cafeterias, they walk the halls, they go to class, and they have to take those final upper level courses and test while they're there. So by the time they come home, when they graduate, they have their minor. So that part is very exciting, because now that we're asking the community to be a part of that, everything is taken care of as far as expenses. The university contributes a major part. The district within its very limited budget. So we need help from the community to sponsor these kids just for those 2 summer weeks in San Antonio. And so that's what the event is about. But I'd rather talk about how that comes together later.
Yes, please do. Keep us in the loop. Tell us
Yes.
when those events are coming up, because we definitely want to cover those. Okay, so it's time to move on to your life story. In this short amount of time we have. You were born in Los Guerra, Mexico.
Yes.
But you grew up in Edinburgh. Where is Los Guerra, and when did you come to the US?
Well, Los Guerra is a border town close to what is now Ciudad Miguel Alemán, right across the bridge from Roma.
Okay.
And so we came when I was 8 years old, and at 1948 rather, and that's when I started school. And so Edinburgh is my hometown, and the Valley is my home territory. And my experience there has been just amazing from the time I arrived. And I came with no English, had to learn it. It was a rural school, moved to the city, and then I graduated with a class of 59. So I did the 12 years in 10. I've always just can't sit still. So learning has been.
Because of the time factor, we're going to skip high school,
Yes.
go straight to UT Pan American, and I'm going to ask you. I said your resume, there were some fun parts in there, because you say that you didn't graduate, and yet later in life you got degrees in Fahrenheit and centigrade.
Yes. I like to
please.
refer to those, because as maybe about 10, 11, we started picking cotton during the summers. So I like to refer to that as the time I got my degree in Fahrenheit, because I mean those were, the summer heat here in the Valley. So I earned that degree. And then later on, after many years, I set up an import-export business. And first I was a buyer for a manufacturer in Mexico, in Houston. From that experience, I set up my own business, and I would export heavy equipment. The very last one that I exported, the Mexican government raised the import tax, speaking about the current situation. So I was stuck with 6 multi-peso equipment on the Mexican side, having to pay 21% more tax on everything I was exporting, and delivering before I would get paid for the 50% that was coming to me. So there, you talk about sweating bullets, I was sweating grenades at that point. But I did deliver, and I did get paid, and that was my last import, and I walked away from it.
It's not on your resume, but I was going to ask you about that, because I was fascinated when you were telling me before about your work in the import-export industry.
Yes, and it involved heavy equipment. My major purchase was an electric plant for Pemex in Mexico that went to Tuxpan, Veracruz. And that was a multi-million-dollar purchase, which gained me a good commission. Which brings me to the point that all those experiences, what has taught me most is the value of relationships and contacts. Has nothing to do with the income and the money, ever.
Next question. A course that you took that had a profound effect on your career was learning to write grants. How did this come about, and what was your first successful grant application?
Well, I went to work for the San Antonio State Hospital in the Volunteer Services Department. And we needed funds for the patients who were there who were abandoned, literally abandoned by their families. So they didn't have anything for personal items and all that. So I said, you know, would you write grants? And writing has been my strength all along from high school on. So I said, sure. So I went for a training at from the Grants Research Center. And then as a test, it was to write a grant for whatever our need was. So I wrote one, and we submitted, and it got funded. To my heart, shock. It was like, what? So I said, this is fun, and it's wonderful. So it was $3,000, but it went a long way. And from there, when I was working at the community level for the hospital, with the mental health services, it was a $5 million grant to HUD, Housing and Urban Development, for independent living in Seguin. So all our patients that were able to leave the campus and go on, fend for themselves, they had a special place to live and work and enjoy regular life. So
you mentioned shock and awe. Recently, in preparation for this podcast, you crunched the numbers.
yes.
And you calculated that over the course of your career, your grant applications have yielded $35.9 million
Yes, sir.
for our region for a variety of programs and projects.
Yes.
That's so impressive. Tell us some of the highlights.
Well, the first was Avance. It was a grant for the Department of Human Services, and it was to establish a fatherhood program. That's where I met David de Leon. So that was successful. It was awarded, state award. Then came Children's Defense Fund. Michael and Susan Dell Foundation funded a major statewide to enroll children in CHIP and Medicaid. So when it came for the Valley part, I sought more grants, more from local and state, and we got more money to make the program really effective. So that was, and it was, I praise God for this, Steve, I have to say it, because the ease with which just things come, the narrative, how you tell the story, that's the whole thing about a grant. So that brought in a chunk of money. But then when I retired, I like to refer to it as my pregnancy, because I only lasted 9 months in retirement. I went to work as a consultant for affordable homes. And that's where the bulk of the money came from. It was to help fund housing for low-income families, where they could afford to stop paying rent and get their own home. And then the best part was a training house for the homeowners to go back and learn how to do repairs at home. So all of that brought in, 29 of it. So it was
29 out of the 35.9. Let's go back to that Children's Defense Fund when you were there and you got the money from the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. Was that the first time Valley students have been able to access the CHIP funding?
Yes, sad to say that CHIP was authorized for Texas. We're the last state in the nation to bring it on. Michael Susan Dell Foundation saw the need for it, and so we went statewide. The beauty of it for me and here in the Valley was how the community, the school districts, the parents, and the students themselves answered the call to help enroll these children. And the best example is the school districts added a line to the registration form. Do your children have insurance? Is it Medicaid, Medicare, or none? So that allowed us to identify all the uninsured children in every school. Then we trained students, nurses, parents, and the parental involvement on how to help fill out the applications. Then we were able to submit the applications and track how many kids got their coverage. For those that couldn't qualify, we established medical homes. Su Clínica del Valle, Clínica El Milagro, the Hope Clinic, all of those. So it was a really coming together of the community behind the children. And the greatest part is that this day, the system is still in place. The funds may have run short, the opportunities may have run short, but the coverage is still there, and we're still working at it.
Another grant, $100,000 to establish a volunteer income tax assistance program in Hidalgo County. You can fill in the rest. I mean, it resulted in the recruitment and training of over 600 high school students.
Yes.
And they were trained to be IRS certified tax preparers. They helped over 3,500 low-income families claim $12 million or more in earned income tax and child tax credit refunds. That's the story in a nutshell.
It is.
Tell us about that.
It is. And the beautiful part about it is that when I proposed the idea that students could be involved in this, again, we go to the school district. You have accounting and bookkeeping classes and those guys. So it was an automatic part for IRS to bring in the software and all that to train the students. And then we had access to the libraries and the cafeterias to provide the service. So the students would do that as a community service. And we could even do the income tax returns for the low-income employees, the transportation, the food services, all those folks. So it was a win-win for everybody. And United Way was a great partner. Our banking community came forth and supported it. Chambers of Commerce carried the news about it, and it was very successful.
There's so many programs. I'm listening to you here today, but there's just been so many programs that you've had influence over.
I'd like to give all the credit to teams that came together, and I like to refer to Olga Gabriel, my dear friend, as we were co-directors in all this, because she knows the movers and shakers and everyone in the community. I'm more like a sergeant in the trenches kind. I like to go out and find out who's going to get in there and work. So we partnered, we put together all of this, and we had a wonderful advisory board at Children's Defense Fund, very supportive.
And that was actually going to be my next question, Luisa. Tell us about your time at the Children's Defense Fund, RGV. You were there for 13 years. You haven't been anywhere for 13 years in the rest of your career, but you worked alongside the incredible Olga Gabriel.
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that.
It was one person, and then when we were able to get free space again at Emilado Clinic, Olga was going to work on our master's degree in public health. So it was a natural match. If we were going to be addressing the needs of health for children, she was just a perfect add to the staff. And so we worked together, and when we had the CHIP program in place, she did a 3-year study by following the parents of the children to make sure that they went to see the doctor, the dentist, the optometrist, et cetera, and that they actually got the care. So it brought down the use of the ER for minor illnesses by 75%. It was amazing, and that was all her work. So what we did together in everything, the children's health, the volunteers for the income tax, everything.
Formidable team.
Yes. And I stayed there for 13 years because the value of services to children is the foundation for anything we're going to do in the future. Anything, for the time they're toddlers. So Children's Defense Fund was like the anchor I needed to really find what I needed to do for a long time. And it proved to be a total success. It was just a beautiful experience.
I'm going to skip the next question because we've sort of referred to it, the Affordable Homes of South Texas. You worked there and you only raised about $30 million for them with your grant writing.
But it was teamwork. It's always been teamwork, Steve.
So we're going to skip that one, okay? My last question is this. In your resume, you say your career has always been about joy, never about a job. Explain that.
I want to explain that. I was doing a conference for workers at child care centers. And those poor ladies and gentlemen were just like, oh no, another speech. And so I asked, okay, how many of you have a job in this? They raised their hands and said, how many of you consider it a joy? And a whole bunch of hands went up, and it surprised me because, like, okay, well, you know what? That's what it is. If you're working with children, if you're attending to their needs, if they're giving them the affection that they need, it's a joy. It's a joy at everything that you do. When you do this and you do that, and then I asked for examples, and they started speaking about the joy they felt about certain things. And so I thought, that's what it's all about. It's not a job. It's a joy to serve. It's a joy to see children and adults and community thrive as a result of a united effort. So it's a joy, Steve.
Those are all the questions I had, Luisa. Have I missed anything out? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
And just to say that I'm just blessed to still be able to work out in the community. I still like to be involved with the students, and I would invite everyone that's listening to this to look for something that you know you're going to enjoy doing. You'll have a great joy in participating in this, a time when we most need to be together and be behind the needs of our people.
Thank you so much for today's interview.
Steve. Thank you.